Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode of Odomword, the next installment. As you can see, we have a different background. I am currently situated on a bench. Did not intend for that to happen. There's the church bells. I am currently situated at Tame Church, St Mary's Church. Perhaps 5 minutes drive up the road from me, so it's quite a nice place to come and sit. The topic for this video this is essentially just going to be an addendum to the fantasy and aspiration video that I previously uploaded. Since that time, I have applied for a master's in literature. Obviously quite the transition from my science degree in ecology. I had looked into various courses. For example, there was a science fiction fantasy course in Glasgow, so of course if I wanted to do that I'd have to move to Glasgow to move up to Scotland again. There was a nice course in Devon, in the west of England, called something like the Poetics of the Imagination. That was all about oral storytelling and landscape and sort of the mythic perception of landscape. So I had seriously considered that as well, but of course I'd have to move to Devon and get accommodation and all that sort of stuff. I ended up applying for a master's in literature, and now this is a research degree, so it's not a taught master's at Buckingham University. I say all this as if I've actually got an acceptance, but I don't yet. I was working on the application for the past 3 or 4 days there, and then I've just submitted it today. Unfortunately, because I had applied for a master's, I did do a master's for about 3 or 4 weeks in 2019. Unfortunately, some of you might be aware that I am not currently eligible to apply for a postgraduate loan, which is very frustrating. I just so happened to have went into a master's degree for 4 weeks, then left it, and then that means I can't possibly do a higher education course ever again. So it's a bit frustrating, so I'm having to go through this whole convoluted process of applying for of writing various letters and whatnot. So a bit anxious because I might not do this, might not get this place on the degree at Buckingham University, and it's unfortunate because I feel like I have a good idea, and that's actually what I'm going to be talking about just as an addendum to this aspiration video in a second. The philosopher Roger Scruton actually taught a course at Buckingham University, so that's something. I had no idea that he taught a master's there. He taught a master's in philosophy at Buckingham University. So hopefully I'll be able to do the course. We'll see. My idea is it's related to the use of fantastical places in fantastical literature and fantasy and weird literature. The original two ideas that I had were related more to aspiration and Tolkien's idea of obviously the flight of the prisoner as opposed to the flight of the deserter. For example, also J.K. Chesterton's ideas of wonder, the necessity of fantasy for increasing and in developing wonder, things like this. Helicopter going past there. That was one of my ideas. It was more an argument against the gritty life as it is fantasy of Martin and Moorcock and all these different other authors as well. They have their positives and whatnot, and I don't disparage them really. It's just that it would be an argument against that type of fantasy as opposed to more positive fantasy. However, I felt like that was going to be a tricky one, so I sort of parked that. The other idea I initially had was related to portals and sort of thresholds, and it's all about things like Mythago Wood and the King of Elfland's Daughter. It was all about. I guess it was all about portal fantasies. It was all about the desire for to escape into another world, or to enter fairy, for example. So that was another. I was planning to do something on that. I thought I was going to do that idea. It turned out that that didn't really have much scope for my interest in the built environment and architecture. So on to my idea then. It's a combination of two of these things. It's It's this idea that we can be not only, well, I guess first of all, it leans towards aspiration and uplifting stories. That's one. That's obviously one part of it. But it's really the focus is going to be on natural landscapes and the built environment as well. So it's this idea that we can use fantastical habitats, locations, spaces, buildings, architecture, um, as a way of guarding against ugliness and ecological degradation, sort of architectural ugliness and ecological degradation in the world today. That's what I essentially say in my mini proposal in the application form. Um, so not only do we have benefits like the surface level idea of the fact that we can be inspired by nice places, or we can be healed by nice places. Obviously, if we're reading about the Shire or an enchanted woodland, we'll obviously be we'll gain positive benefits from that. But it's also, if we take for example the book Piranesi, that's all about this character who is wandering through this seemingly infinite house, this beautiful space, and there's a large emphasis on contemplation. And I say in my mini proposal that I want to focus down on fantastical literature because it's so broad. Obviously, that could be anything really. I want to focus on stories, novellas, novels about that place an emphasis on the well, I guess it places an emphasis on place and a sense of place, and more specifically, the idea that we can have characters that are contemplative. So again, coming back to Piranesi, it's this idea that not only when we spend time in a fantastical location, especially when it's a built environment, we're noticing all these details. We will strengthen, I believe, our ability to notice things, the art of noticing. There's also this idea that we might be able to train our own sort of imaginative and sort of contemplative faculties by sort of emulating the thought processes of these different characters, and Piranesi is just one example. So that's one aspect to it. Another aspect, rather. Another idea is just, again, it's we could have, for example, the sort of like we could have a development of this, the need to yearn. I think the idea that there can be something out there. So if there's someone that feels like they're stagnating, and that they don't want to go out for a variety of reasons, they may have some problems with sort of anxiety or whatever. I think books like The King of Elfland's Daughter, or well, I get the King of Elfland's Daughter is a good example. This idea that we have this journey to try and find the twilight realm or border of Elfland. So Alveric's journey, the long search of Alveric. To me, that's sort of indicative of this feeling of yearning, and it may sound a bit vague, but obviously there's aspects of thresholds there, crossing over thresholds, seeking for new horizons or better horizons, and it's all about, again, it's different aspects of place. It could be the smallest possible thing, like looking through a window. For example, I'm thinking of there's a Dunsany short story. I think it's called The City in the Window or something like this. It's about a man who buys a window or sort of a painting. I can't quite remember. It's a long time ago that I read it, but he looks through the window or frame, and he envisages a fantastical city. And I want to cover things like this. I want to talk about, for example, the creative destructive nexus of Clark Ashton Smith's The City of the Singing Flame. I want to talk about things like Coraline and Narnia and going through doors and whatnot. So admittedly it's quite a broad and vague sort of thesis at the moment, but that's sort of my indication for the idea. That's where I'm sort of leaning towards. Different aspects to it as well. So I think it's got enough scope. It's got enough sort of detail there. Different paths to go down that I think might be useful. Um, there's Gormenghast as well. So I was speaking to Richard about this, a friend I've mentioned a couple of times. There's metatextual elements as well, aspects to this essay, this thesis. This idea that we can it's a the reader relationship dynamic, where, for example, because Titus Groan is, he feels like he is stagnating in Gormenghast Castle, and because that trilogy places such an emphasis on place, this wandering, labyrinthine, somber castle, of very much like sort of similar to the aesthetic of this church here, to me at least. Um, the there's definitely parallels between Titus Groan's desire to escape Gormenghast and, for example, perhaps the reader's own stagnation in a unpleasant environment. So I think I'll leave. I'll leave it there. Perhaps I missed a few points, but don't have my notes with me or anything like that. So this has just been a little addendum to the last video. Somewhat of an update about obviously this desire to do further research, to go into a higher course, higher degree, and just to really, I guess it's a good encapsulation of a lot of the things that I was talking about there, to do with uplifting stories, aspiration, aesthetics, architecture, natural environments as well. So this has been Taylor. This has been Oldenward. Hope you enjoyed the new background. I would like to do more like this as well. So thanks for watching, everyone. Until next time.